I can sit here, it's fine. There's another seat down here. I can
All right, good.
Gracious God, we do thank you, we bless you, and we ask that you give this council wisdom and direction and guidance in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, can you please call the roll?
President Passman.
Present.
Trustee Harris.
Here.
Trustee Chandler. Trustee Hill.
Yes.
Trustee Tidwell.
Here.
Trustee Pridemore. Trustee Vanderkolden. Here. Attorney Seegers.
Here.
Clerk Mack and Treasurer Winsett.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Motion made by Trustee Hill to accept the agenda as presented, seconded by Trustee Tidwell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carried. Public comment on the agenda.
Just curious as to why this had to be held at 11:30 in the morning and not at a normal 7 o'clock time.
Yes.
We are considering the termination of an employee who's on administrative leave. We cannot force an employee to come here and leave. However, she was being paid by the council or the village at the time, and therefore she is duty bound to be here during business hours.
Items for discussion. Attorney's items, none. President's items. First item on the agenda is the state audit 2012 and 2013. Council, last time we met, we were given information from the state auditor with regards to the opinion that they were offering, which is a disclaimed opinion. We either have to move to accept that opinion or not accept that opinion. If we do not accept that opinion, then they will yank the audits and we will not have any record of any audits. It will immediately put us into default. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to accept the state audit opinions for 2012 and 2013. So, motion made by President Pascal to accept the state audit comments for 2012 and 13, seconded by Trustee Hill. Since this is a concern.
Question on the motion.
Yep.
You said that we were going to be, even accepting it, we're going to be penalized.
If we accept it, we're not penalized for the fact that we actually have the audits completed. A disclaimed opinion is one that we have to resolve. However, it is not, if they don't do, if they remove their opinion and yank it from us, even as a bad opinion, then what happens is those audits go away. We will then have to pay someone to come in and do the 2012 and 13 again, as well as the 14.
No, he's indicated that that was our choice if we wanted to do that, but it wasn't going to change anything because they were the ones who were going to have to accept it anyway.
They will not, they will then offer a no opinion, which will then mean that we still have to have those done over.
No, that's not what we're doing.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Let's do a roll call, please.
Trustee Hill,
Yes.
trustee Vandercover,
Yes.
trustee Harris,
No.
trustee Pridemore. Yes. Trustee Tidwell,
Yes.
President Pascal.
Yes, motion carried. The next item on the agenda is hearing regarding continued employment of employee. With this, I'm going to turn this over to Attorney Seegers.
Can I have a question for you? Sure. Before we even get started, have you been through the grievance procedures with this contract?
Yes.
I mean, and we're in compliance with the contract?
Yes, we are.
And what step of the agreement are we at?
We're in the final phase of the procedure, sir.
No, I'm sorry, there's no questions.
So you're on the fifth step of the agreement? You indicated
I don't have the procedure, the
you don't have a contract with it?
Not further right now, sir. That's me, I read.
You have a hearing and you don't have a contract with it?
What would I do?
To answer that question I just asked you.
I'm not here to answer a question. I'm here to present evidence to the board as to the termination of an employee.
I'm asking you a question as to have we followed the steps of the contract?
The question
Yes,
was answered.
This between me and him.
Question was answered. Please proceed.
Council, you have before you this morning a packet of information which has been shared with Ms. Zarate and her union representative, Mr. Lansdale. And really, it comes no surprise to Ms. Zarate or her union representative in terms of the content of the package that you all were presented with this morning. It is essentially a summary or actually the discipline that has been propounded upon Ms. Zarate since at least June of this year. And it is astounding how much information has been levied against her in a rather short time frame. We start with the very first grievance that she was presented, well, the very first discipline that she was assessed with, which was on June 19th of 2014. And in fact, the record should reflect that there were in fact two types of discipline presented to Ms. Zarate on both of those days. This particular incident prompted a meeting that was called at the request of the president with Ms. Zarate and her union representative. And that meeting took place on June 26th. I'm going to present you all another document, which is not in the package that you have right now, which is a June 26 email to Mr. Lansdale, our union representative, about what in fact were the concerns we were going to address later on that day on June 26th. We in fact met on June 26th, and council, I was personally present for the meeting in the president's office. The president asked quite candidly, was there anything that could be done to address what was clearly insubordinate conduct, as you can see from the June 19th and the two June 19th incidents, anything we could do to try to right the ship. And I personally experienced something I had never experienced before, as it relates to an employee speaking or just interacting with her direct superior. She refused to make any eye contact with the president or me. She refused to answer any questions, and she was belligerent, to say the least. That meeting, frankly, caused some concern in both me and the president. And her union representative, Mr. Lansdale, seems to be a pleasant fellow. I reached out to him as was there something we were missing? Is there something we can do to try to help this young lady? Because whatever issues she was having was hampering the effective running of the village. Mr. Lansdale appeared to agree with me, indicated that the court reporter cannot hear two people talking at the same time. I would ask that everybody please hold their comments until after this proceeding. Afterwards, Mr. Lansdale and I spoke, and he indicated he would see, quite earnestly, he would see what he could do to see what he can get his client to do to try to make things run more smoothly. Thereafter, I received this email from Mr. Lansdale. Which is a July 9th, 2014 email from Mr. Lansdale. And apparently he was at a loss as to what could be done. The conduct escalated, and nothing seemed to be able to meet the village's needs. There was yet another incident in August of 2014, August 12th, where Ms. Zarate was actually videotaping someone, one of the residents of the village. And in addition to videotaping a resident of the village, she also videotaped someone who was on premises in order to be able to perform an audit on the water system. And that person was actually doing things on Ms. Zarate's computer. And the audit process in itself is supposed to be a very sacrosanct process. And she was videotaping potentially the keystrokes of the auditor who was auditing the water system on her computer. That prompted yet another discipline, which is attached as the August 12th discipline. And the second to last discipline that has been asserted onto Ms. Zarate as of late is on September 24th, 2014. And that is for essentially excessive absenteeism. You will note in the documentation that's attached what her attendance has been at least since April of 2014. And because of her failure to come to work
her failure to present doctor's notes in advance of taking off work, the president thought it was necessary for her to discipline her. Lastly, on September 29th of this year, Ms. Zarate, well, it was discovered on or about that date that Ms. Zarate had, in fact, told a set of residents, and I believe it's a mobile home park, that they were not going to be charged for a certain part of their water bill. And the president came into knowledge of that by way of a conversation she had with the president or the representative of the Motorhome Association. And he confirmed that he had in fact been told by Angela Zarate not to bill the residents for this particular water bill. And I think the total amount of that particular decision that she made unilaterally without any knowledge of the president or anybody else, for that matter, within the authority, is to the tune of approximately $44,000. Now, you all can, this is your decision, but it has been recommended by the Employee Relations Committee to terminate Ms. Zarate. Today is the date and time set for that the hearing on that matter. The evidence clearly speaks for itself. And in terms of process, I've said what I had to say. I'll reserve a few minutes to say something. I was told I have a half hour, but I'll reserve the balance of what I have in a half hour to speak to whatever Ms. Zarate has to say in response. But in short, for the effective and efficient running of this village, it is recommended that Ms. Zarate be terminated. She's like a bull in a china shop. And there's not much left to be said about her actions once you take a review of her discipline history that I presented you with. Thank you.
At this time, council would like to hear if there's anything that Mr. Ronnie would like to say.
We'll be talking, two people will be talking in on behalf.
I'm Paul Cassidy, I'm legal counsel for Ms. Zarate. I guess I'm a little bit confused, and maybe you could help me out here so that I have some clarification of all this. Is this meeting meant to be a watermill hearing? Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay. So she's not had a watermill hearing by the Employee Relations Committee, is that correct?
She's here to speak on her behalf and her defense, if she has any defense to the charges against her.
I understand. I'm just trying to clarify things so that I know what to speak about. You have a memorandum here that says that she was recommended by the committee to terminate her. Has that decision already been made?
No.
Do you have the minutes to the meeting, from that meeting by the Employee Relations Committee?
I don't, sir.
Do you have a record that the meeting was even held?
That's the record that you have.
Was there a public meeting with notice given to hold that meeting to make this recommendation?
Sir, you are wasting your client's precious time.
Yes or second to say yes or no?
I do not know that as I said.
Okay, thank you. Who says that I'm wasting your time? Is the council saying I only have a certain amount of time to speak on where we at? Pardon me?
A half hour.
And how did that determination get made?
That's the determination that was made, sir.
It's not in any of the records that you provided.
We've given you notice of it today.
Pardon me?
We've given you notice of it today.
Was there a vote by the board for that notice? Let's move on. You are required under law bill to provide her with all the evidence you intend to bring against her. So far as what you've said, there are apparently 5 things. Her insubordination of conduct on June 19th, the videotape, the absenteeism, and this 9/29/14 discovery. The resident was told not to pay a water bill. They didn't have to pay a water bill. Now, your memorandum indicates that Mrs. Zarate lied to the person presenting the payment as evidenced by recording of the conversation made by President Pisano. Where is that recording?
It's in the documents given to Ms. O'Hanson.
There is no recording given to the union rep. There's no recording given to you.
Very clear, the recording is President Passano's recordation of her conversation with Mr. Winkleman. It is in the packet that you have, sir.
Well, today in your remarks, you said that this matter came to her attention by Winkleman.
Correct.
In fact, she's got a statement where at a recent public meeting in September, she said a resident told her about this. Are you aware of that? She writes in here that she recorded it, and now you tell me there's no recording, because if she did record a conversation without people knowing about it, it'd be a criminal offense. You're aware of that. So I want to know, what is it? Did Winkleman bring it to her attention? Did she record it when some person came in? Or was it a situation where a resident came to her and she had expressed at a public meeting in September, had brought it to her attention? Which of the 3 is it?
Why don't you bring Winkleman in here and let him tell us he didn't say it?
You're bringing this complaint against her.
I said what I had to say. You showed me he didn't say it.
Okay. In rebuttal of the excessive failure to have excessive absenteeism, I have here for the board's review the doctor's notes indicating why she was absent for pneumonia, and also that the president requested a fax recording to her of the absenteeism from the doctor, which they attempted to do on the date that she requested it, on September the 8th, and the fax didn't go through. But I've got that. You can use it as an exhibit. You can see that she has reasonable excuses for not being present. So I would present that to the board. I'll hand it to the president. She can provide it to the other board members. That should take care of the absenteeism. Is there some kind of rule or regulation against videotaping an individual on public property? I'm not aware of that. Now, you've indicated in your memorandum some 11 reasons for her discharge recommendation by the Employee Relations Committee. And one of them says, manually adjusting thousands of monthly water bills to shift payment to the other customers. There's been no evidence presented here today of that, is there? I didn't hear Mr. Seeger speak of it. I'm wondering if you received it, because we did not receive that. For the record, we did not receive that in the package that Ms. Roddy was presented. It says escalating workplace violence. There's been no testimony, no statement to anybody about any workplace violence here by Mr. Seeger or anybody. This alleged damaging of a door is also included in there. There's been no testimony or evidence presented by Mr. Seeger of any of that. She's continued to make willful attempts at disrupting the workplace. There's been no evidence or presentation on that. It's indicated here that she's failed to follow directions from the village president. I don't know, there's been no evidence or presentation of that information to you as a board. There were several frivolous grievances that were allowed to accumulate unheard. It's our position that that has nothing to do with Ms. Zarate. Ms. Zarate is an administrative assistant. She has nothing to do with grievances. There's been no presentation of evidence on that. It says that those were dismissed for having no merit. I don't know anything about that. There's been no evidence or testimony that Ms. Zarate has repeatedly resisted all attempts by the village and the union to go for counseling or to formulate a plan of action that would allow her to continue as an employee. Mr. Seegers tells you that she was at a meeting, she refused to make eye contact. Well, that's a factual statement. You can use that and say, okay, she didn't look at her or him. Refused to speak to us. Well, because she's working in a hostile environment due to the conduct of the president. And lastly, it says here that she was belligerent. Belligerent's a conclusion. It's not a factual statement. What fact did Mr. Seegers bring forth that she was belligerent? Not a single fact did he state. He just drew the conclusion. Now, if he has an opportunity to rebut, then I'm going to go sit down so that I can give a sir rebuttal to something that he may bring up based upon what I've said.
Don't steal all my time.
I'll give you the opportunity now then. There's more that I would like to say, and for the record, there's been no prior notice that I would only have, or Ms. Zarate would only have a limited amount of time to rebut these accusations. And I think that it's a violation of due process not to, number one, allow her a full rebuttal. It's a violation of due process for her not to be able to say, I'm going to answer each and every accusation in any manner I legally can do. And you're denying her that. And if Ms. Pisano has a vote here, she'd be denied substantive due process because she has in fact brought most of these accusations against her. Wouldn't we all like to say, hey, I'll bring the accusations and then I'll decide their validity? That's a violation of due process. She should not have a vote. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Lansdale. I'm the Teamster representative for Local 214, and I have a copy of the contract. Article 5, paragraph J, page 7, is management's rights. It indicates to discipline or discharge employee for cause, including violation of reasonable employee rules, excessive absenteeism, failure to receive acceptable employee performance evaluations, and other causes traditionally relied upon by employers in disciplining and discharging their employees. Let me first start that back on October 14th, a request was made via fax and mail, because my secretary does both, to the president requesting certain information. That information, I haven't went through it because I just received it this morning. So I haven't went through it. So as far as this being a watermill hearing, we don't have the time to respond to all these charges because some of them were just presented today. And one was the attendance record. Back on June 14th, there was an incident apparently. We did have a meeting on June 26th, and I disagree that we agreed that there was a problem, that Angela had a problem. I think we agreed there was a problem here in this village. And my suggestion was to get a state mediator to come in and sit down with all of us and see what we could do. The president, Angela, the rest of the employees in this village. Because it just doesn't stop with Angela. The rest of these employees, all the way over to DPW, are intimidated and belittled and put down because of their work, because of what's going on with this administration. And that's been the problem. Angela just seems to be the person that got the wrath of it because she's a little more outspoken than some other employees. And then my email even suggests that you gave indicates that I'm saying let's talk about this problem. Let's get a state mediator in here. A number of dates were given that the state mediator gave me, and none of them were agreed to. I haven't heard anything about meeting with the state mediator. In fact, I even gave the state mediator the attorney's email address, and there was correspondence, and we still haven't done it. So, as far as the issues here at Village Hall, we have 2 employees that work very closely with Angela who have not made any statements, have not filed any complaints, who work with her every single day, and have said that the work environment is fine. I've talked to them, hopefully you have too. As far as the damage to the door, it's my understanding that there was 2 work orders to fix that door prior to somebody saying she damaged it. So I want you to double check that too. As far as the issue of the water bill, now if there's a recording of this, and I asked for it in my request, and because it specifically tells me in the documents that I received that there was a recording. Recording means it was done by some sort of electronic device. Nobody has presented me with an electronic device which indicates what was said between the resident and Angela. Don't know who overheard it. Don't know what was said. Even asked for the gentleman's statement if he made one, or if he will make one. And I would have loved to have had him here to hear what he had to say, but we didn't do that. So, when you look at the contract between the Teamsters and the Village of New Haven, under management rights, you can discipline and discharge an employee for cause. There is no cause here. And the information I received today should have been presented prior to today. So, whatever decision you make, and Brett, let me ask you your question. We are not at any step in the grievance procedure because we have not gotten a letter saying she's terminated from this village. There's a recommendation for termination. So once Angela, if that's what your sole wish is to terminate her, then a grievance will be filed, and we will file it directly to step 3 like the contract says. So, hope that answered your question. That's all I had. You didn't have just cause. You didn't have cause to discipline this young lady. We have a 3-day grievance out there that we're waiting also for the mediator to come in and talk about that one. So we have a 3-day discipline, and we have this now supposedly discharged. Once you do your vote, then we will go forward with our grievance.
Council, briefly, the packet speaks for itself, but a couple things that I want to put a couple things in context. We offered to mediate, to do something, to just come up with a plan, and you'll see attached to the August discipline report is some colloquy between the president and Angela, and I think me and Mr. Lansdale regarding what are we going to do? We need to do something to resolve this problem that's festering. And the president specifically asked for a plan from Angela. You know, what is the plan? And her plan was that, well, she's going to keep doing the same thing that she's been doing. And that's attached to the documentation you have before you. Because she didn't think she's been doing anything wrong. And that in the context of someone whose union representative says, well, yeah, there's a problem. You have the subordinate who's claiming, yeah, there's no problem, everything's fine. But our own union representative is telling us that, yeah, there's a problem. It doesn't smell good, and it doesn't smell good for a reason. Because the truth is that there is a problem, and it's no secret within the village. We have tried to come to an amicable resolution. We've been rebuffed at every turn. The only first time that I got a response back from Mr. Lansdale about mediating was the day after the president sent her home on paid leave for this particular incident with respect to the $42,000. It's the very first time. I sent him repeated emails and texts saying, look, have you heard from a mediator yet? Are we going to sit down and talk about it? Things are getting worse. It's not getting better. So when you talk about reasonableness, the president has been over backwards. And this village is at a standstill. There have been bills that haven't been able to get out because she's the person that doesn't. And the village continues to pay her. Look, this is your village. You all determine what you all think the future of the village should be. And it's your call. I think there's more than just cause here. I'm reticent to make this type of pitch to a client. I'm sure she has a family and people that rely on her. And I don't think anybody in this council takes that lightly. But at the end of the day, you all have a duty to the people of this village. Vote what you think is best. Thank you.
I'm not going to be taken out of context at all. I did not say Angela had a problem. I said this village had a problem and that we needed to resolve it. That was collectively. I did not say Angela, and I'm not going to be taken out of context.
And the last thing to add here is Mr. Seegers brought up in his opening statement or proof that it was Richard that brought it to her attention that the 40,000 or 38,000, there's different numbers, 44,000, brought it to her attention. We should have had Richard here. It wasn't until Mr. Seegers spoke those words this morning that we knew that they intended to rely upon a statement made by Richard as opposed to this previous statement by your president that someone in the community had told her, as opposed to the statement in the memorandum saying that she recorded it. So we couldn't have Richard here because we had no idea that he was the guy that supposedly brought this to her attention. And lastly, where's this proof that she didn't pay water bills? Where's this proof at? You know, you've got just these accusations, that's all this is. And accusations forms the basis of just cause, we're all in trouble.
At this time, I'm going to move that council take a 10-minute break to review the documentation in front of them so that they can render a decision. Do I have a second? Motion made by President Pasternow to take a 10-minute break. It is 12:19, seconded by Trustee Hill. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Break begins.
Okay, yeah.